Matthew Newman has joined us. He's the founder and CEO behind Truso, the first ever black-owned social media networking app in the Metaverse. Matthew Newman, good to have you on, sir. How are you?
I am doing so well this morning, Tavis. How about yourself?
Man, if I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I'm just glad to have you with us in conversation, brother. Let me start with this right quick, and we'll move into to Twitter. Let me start with Truso.
Yes.
For those who don't know about Truso, the first ever black-owned social media networking app in the Metaverse. Brag about Truso right quick, and then we'll get to Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. Truso is the newest social media app that's simply based on video. What we saw at the oncoming of the pandemic was that a lot of voices and expertise, if you will, were being limited on mainstream social media platforms. And so even as a community, as a Black culture, we found ourselves still migrating to these mainstream social media platforms because there were no other platforms to go to. And so we saw a need to create a social media platform that's based on video, that is inclusive of our culture, that is broken down into the silos that mean the most to us as a Black culture. And we essentially say that Truso is an extension of the barbershop and the beauty shop. Those same conversations that happen in those physical spaces can now happen in a virtual world, if you will, on social media, a place where we're spending majority of our times now these days. So that's Truso. It means truly social.
What are those silos that we inhabit and that we appreciate more than other cultures?
You know, one of the greatest things, Tavis, right now is it's real estate, for example. But majority of us don't know that we can tap into real estate with the minimum income that some of us may have. Some of us aren't millionaires. Some of us are thousandaires, and that's okay. But we want to get onto these platforms to teach our culture more about real estate syndication and allowing us a platform that can share that you can take anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 and invest into your first area of real estate in your portfolio. But a lot of us don't know that until we get into a space to where we can be educated about that. The other is politics and religion. How well do those play together, or do they play well together? Or how can we get them to play well together? These are oftentimes conversations that we're afraid to have because traditionally they've been shunned. However, let's get into a creative space to have more productive dialogue on how we can marry some of these things that affect us. Politics, we know, the racial injustices. How do we merge those two? How do we truly come together to resolve or bridge the gap between community and police so that we have more effective relationships on the street? So those are some of the silos that are broken down within the app to engage in conversation.
Let me ask this question. We'll move on to Twitter. I am always fascinated to ask this question of persons like yourself who get it. For the rest of us who don't get it, and I'm always tickled by the responses I get, and I'm just trying to make sure that every time I ask this, we get another opportunity for the audience to understand what this thing really is. So how would Matthew Newman describe what the Metaverse is?
Yeah. So this is one of the things that I can say boldly is that not a lot of us understand the metaverse, and it's okay. There's no right answer to define it because it's so new, and we're still trying to explore ways in which we can involve ourselves. But to answer that question directly, the metaverse is a virtual space in which there are physical interactions. And here's what I mean. The same way in which you can interact physically, such as buying certain items, certain presentations that may happen on global stages or domestic stages can then happen into the metaverse. And that's our idea even with Truso, is that we can take Truso into the metaverse by, one, making it an attractive space for the African-American community. But number two is by selling digital products where people, anybody, regardless of who you are, no matter your social following or how influential you are, can still make money off of it, or you can monetize off of the use in the metaverse. So one of the ways in which that differentiates us from other social media platforms with Truso in the metaverse is that you'll be able to show up on video as yourself or as an avatar. That's a game changer, right? To where you can alternate between, again, your real self or your digital self. But on your digital self, you're wearing clothing. You can customize your avatar to have virtual hats, virtual sunglasses, virtual shirts. And so we have Black-owned clothing companies that we're going to partner with that you can style your avatar with. You can buy those clothing items off of that avatar, and the other users buying it from can make money from somebody else buying their clothing off of them. So that's how we play. That's how you take action in a real world, or we can go into Gucci store, whatever store, and buy clothes. We can go to a Walkerwear or Fubu or Dada Supreme or Inichi, all of these Black-owned companies, and buy clothing these days. But we can now do that in the virtual world and style our avatars to reflect just that. And that right there is the play for the Black culture in the metaverse.
I like the idea of being able to style my avatar. Can you get the avatar to do some of my work for me? That's what I want to know, Matthew. Can I get my avatar to take some of this work off my desk?
You can literally, although it's comical, you can in future time. And so hopefully that's something that we come up with in the future. How can we relieve some of this pressure off of us? We need that.
That's what I need. I need an avatar that's going to work, man. I just look good in the clothes I style here, man. Can the Negro get some work done? That's what I want to know. Work done? Yeah. Speaking of Negroes, the use of the N-word, and I'm going to call it what it is. I won't say it repeatedly, but the word nigga, and I say that because it never lands with the same weight for me when you say the N-word, particularly in a story like this, where they're not saying the N-word. They're using the word nigga. And the word nigga on Twitter, the use of that word has jumped almost 500% since Elon Musk's takeover, as these trolls, again, as I said earlier, are trying to test the limits on free speech. What do you make of this this headline, this story?
We're allowing too many people who garner the majority of the monies in the United States, power these platforms that make room for not only the less fortunate, the marginalized, etc., all people who have been thinking these things over the years. We're granting them too much access in order to perpetuate the stereotypes of those who don't even care for us, right? Instead of utilizing your influence and your financial or your wealth to buy platforms in order to say things that you think necessary, utilize those monies to help us rally around policy, rally around lobbyists to help to take some of this pressure off of our culture that's been there for so long. But we're utilizing big funds and people with influential names access to buy these platforms in order to promote that. I believe Forbes says it. It's like there's one thing. These are homophobic type of conversations that, like, even those conversations that we're allowed to be, quote unquote, freedom of speech. That is incredibly offensive to demographics or cultures or populations of people that should be dismissed. So my take again is that we can't allow people with the majority of the world's wealth access to purchase platforms such as this that promote perpetuation of stereotypes of those who don't even care for us.
When we come forward, I want to ask Matthew directly how much of this has to do with the fact that it's Elon Musk who has purchased Twitter, number one. I heard somewhere, I don't know if it's true or not, if Kanye's already back on Twitter, or maybe he already is, okay? So Kanye's back, which means Donald Trump ain't far behind. He may be on already, for all I know. So those persons who have been silenced by Twitter for saying things that were, outrageous are now making their way back on Twitter. You combine that with the fact that they're using the word nigger like it's nobody's business on Twitter. It makes you wonder what Twitter is about to become. I'll put that question as well to Matthew Newman when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Good thing we've got 3 hours.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward. Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
We continue our conversation now with Matthew Newman, the founder and CEO behind Truso, the first ever Black-owned social media networking app in the metaverse. Talking specifically now about the use of the so-called N-word on Twitter. It jumped almost 500% once Elon Musk took over the platform. How much of this you think has to do with Elon Musk specifically, Matthew? He's been pretty outspoken about free speech issues. I won't color it more than that, but how much of this do you think are people testing what Elon is going to let them get away with?
It's the same thing that happened when former President Donald Trump was in office, right? It's again, you have the folks who have the influence that are promoting speech that is offensive to these minority demographics. And so it has everything to do with him. It has everything to do with the amount of money that he has to even acquire a platform such as Twitter, right? I don't know if this is going to come up in conversation, but you even have Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, who's purchasing a conservative platform called Parler.
Mm-hmm.
But you think about the amount of money that these individuals have in order to do it. So my take on it is that this is a clear indication that we as a Black community, as a culture, need to rally around it. I'm not patting myself on the back for trousseau. This is just Matthew Newman speaking to the audience, is that we have a much greater responsibility now to rally around Black-owned companies who are looking to produce social media platforms. So if that means financial means, let's rally around them to figure out how can we as a Black culture help promote the Black-owned platforms and get on those platforms to have conversations, constructive conversations around these issues and how we can look to minimize them or completely eradicate them. Because we have enough. We have enough within our own culture to eradicate this, to overcome these specific topics of conversation. But yet we're making them much more influential by even rallying around the conversations regarding their foolishness. We again, as a Black... Go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I want to just follow what you just laid out here, Matthew, which is if we, it's a big if, it happened during the Montgomery bus boycott, so there is historical evidence that it can happen and happen in places beyond Montgomery. But if we could get on the same bus, pardon the pun, if we could get on the same bus right about now, how would that change the game? If all of us who are Black got off of their platforms, got on our own, that would be a game changer, would it not?
Oh, absolutely, it'd be a game changer. And the thing is that what we have to do, my pastor speaks about this often. We're doing some incredible things at the church. But one thing that he says, the greatest fear is Black people working together, right? And so we first have to understand the power that we have, the power that we possess to change the narrative. If at least enough of us say that we have enough power to change the narrative around these conversations, then that's what's going to fill up the bus. We need to fill up the bus with people who believe that we have, that know that we have the power to shift the culture. You know, one of the greatest quotes that I speak often of on stages is this quote by Tupac. And it says that I'm not saying that I'm going to change the world, but I'm going to spark the brain of one who will. And if I can spark the brain or shift the mindset of enough folks within our community to rally around us and say, hey, we got the power. Let's exercise the power. Let's start our own. Let's back our own. That means financially and participating in it as well. If we can rally enough people to say we got the power to do it, then it will completely change the game. We can already speak about our buying power. That's significant. We're the ones that create the trends anyway.
Yeah, they are.
We put Clubhouse on the map.
We did indeed. We put Clubhouse on the map, and now they are testing the limits of free speech on Twitter by calling us nigger here, nigger there, nigger everywhere. Now that Elon Musk owns it, and so people always want to test the limits of anything at our expense. We are always the litmus test, it seems, for everything. So when we come forward in our remaining moments with Matthew Newman, my exit question for him is, what then does he think Twitter is to become now that Elon Musk owns it? That question for Matthew Newman when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Interrogating your assumptions and expanding your inventory of ideas. Let's get back to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
All right, Matthew Newman, got about 3 minutes left here. So what do you think Twitter is to become now that Mr. Musk owns it?
Yes. Are you able to hear me, Tavis?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. What do you think Twitter's going to become now that Elon owns it?
Oh, Twitter is going to become a place where only those who have hate and want to express past frustrations, etc., of the communities, again, that are oftentimes deemed unacceptable. You think about the Muslims, the LGBTQ, the Black community. This is going to be the space where people feel as though they have the space to say whatever the heck they want without any specific consequences. And that's the unfortunate aspect. And as many of you, the audience, continue to read up on Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter, you're going to begin to see that a lot of advertisers and corporate sponsors, et cetera, are backing out, and for good reason. And so it is because they don't want to be associated with it because it's going to begin to affect the bottom line. And we talked about it before the break about the buying power of the Black community. If these corporations understand that if Blacks specifically pull out, how much money is left on the table. And so Twitter is going to begin, the advertisers supporting Twitter are going to begin to see that. But yet and still, because Elon Musk is saying and doing what he's doing now, unfortunately, it's going to be a space where people feel as though they can say whatever the heck they want without zero consequence.
I don't know who the most prominent black person would be at this moment to publicly say they're leaving Twitter. But to the brilliant point you're making, Matthew Newman, I have seen a number of high-profile white folk who have said they are stepping away from Twitter. They've closed down their accounts. It's becoming almost a trending thing now, where these prominent people are walking away from Twitter because they can see exactly where it's headed. I don't know if anybody black who's prominent has said as yet they're walking away, but you're right on. You're spot on that people are starting to walk away from Twitter now because they're afraid of what it is about to become.
Yes, and you see that happen as well during the pandemic. During this time of social unrest and George Floyd, etc., is that even you have to black out TikTok. Right, specifically speaking about TikTok, we weren't getting the praise that we deserve for creating these trends on TikTok.
That's right.
The praise was given to somebody else, and you saw what happened when we pulled out of TikTok. Same thing to your point is going to be happening here on Twitter, and that prominent voice, whoever that prominent voice is, whether they're connected to you, Tavis, they're connected to me, or someone listening today, or even on the replay later, that person has to come to the forefront. And be that one to say, that voice for the community that says that we will not tolerate this. That if I pull out, we all got to pull out, so that we can stand behind the defense of the offense. Stand behind the defense. We need to be defending our name, our culture, and our power, which is most important. We don't need these platforms. We don't need them. Yeah. We need to rally again around other platforms that are doing similar things and better, in order to provide ourselves, our community, a space to be who we are unapologetically without any remorse from the other folks who are not remorse. The bad news or words from other people who don't support us anyway. Yeah,
well, Matthew Newman has laid down. He's laid down the challenge. Those of us who are black and are on Twitter as individuals or as companies or projects that we represent, we got a hard question to ask ourselves, a hard question that requires a hard answer about whether or not we're going to stay on Twitter in the days to come if things get uglier. Matthew Newman, congratulations on Truso, my friend. Good to have you on. We'll do it again.
Thank you so much, Tavis. And to your audience, thank you all very much. Tavis, we'll talk soon. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Stay strong. Time to make room for the KBLA Midday Money Chain since my time is up for today. Up next, Lynn Richardson and the Millionaires Roundtable. After that, ahead of the crypto curve with Najee Roberts. Old money, new money, doesn't really matter. We got you covered here on KBLA Talk 1580. Until tomorrow morning, thanks for tuning in. And as always,